Howdy folks, Rudrose here, and today we are looking at a very fun and casual form of Blurple. Maybe not so casual, maybe it's a little better than I first thought, but using a new Dual Ink card. This is Merlin the Clever Clairvoyant. So this deck was inspired by a friend at Locals named Jerry, so Jerry, big shout out to you for this. And he was using this card, and as I sat there watching him taking on a full red-blue shark list, I was like, wow, this is pretty good, actually. Better than I thought. So, what does Merlin do? He's a 1-cost, 0/1. Pretty terrible, right? But he has, how do you even pronounce this? Prestidigitonium? I'm assuming that's how that's said. Whenever this character quests, name a card, then reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a named card, put it in your inkwell face down and exert it. Otherwise, put it on top of your deck. Now, I didn't think much of this when it first came out, but watching him use it in action was pretty impressive. So obviously, if you're just guessing randomly into the void, this probably isn't going to do a whole lot for you. But if you can know what the top card of your deck is, you can ramp without losing any card advantage from hand. And see it in action, especially against more control-y decks that don't put out a character on turn 1, especially that now that blue-gray maybe will go down a little bit, maybe you won't see as many bells. Very impressive form of ramp. So, how do we know what the top card of our deck is? Well, we've got a couple ways to do that. One is another version of Merlin, which is this Happy Squirrel version. So when you play him or when he leaves play, you get to look at the top card of your deck and you either keep it on top or put it on the bottom. This makes a very easy curve out with this Merlin on 1, this Merlin on 2. And then the squirrel will immediately let you know what's on top so you can guess and then put it in your inkwell. We also have the Ursula's Cauldron item way back from set 1. This one was a pretty standard item back in Ruby Amethyst decks way back in the day. So it's a 2-cost uninkable, which isn't great, but it has an effect you can use the turn you play it. You look at the top 2 cards of your deck and you get to keep one on the top and one on the bottom. This works immediately as a curve out with Merlin as well. You put Merlin on 1, you drop the Cauldron on 2, immediately check and set up what you want on the top, and then Merlin can quest and put it right into the inkwell. The other option we have, of course, is Merlin's Cottage, a location with 7 health, so quite beefy, doesn't get us any lore, but it says each player plays with the top of their deck revealed. So if you put this on 2, just like with all the other effects, Merlin can instantly know what's on there, and you always know it's coming from your opponent too, which is pretty useful. So we have multiple ways to do that, and Merlin is just going to help you ramp. So that's the core of the deck. Well, I thought, well, what's another way to do that? And something Jerry used in his list that I've actually upped more here is Bruno Madrigal. Now, normally, we don't talk about Bruno, but in this case, we are going to talk about Bruno. And with the way the Merlin works, if you can get him out on turn 1, you get a way to guess the card, so he ramps on turn 2. You can play this Bruno on turn 3, or Rabbit on turn 3. Now, that's just the same as if you've done a Tipo or a Sail, but taking cards off the top of the deck to ink is just so much more efficient. It's not hurting your hand size. So now, if you have a Bruno set up, and you have your Merlin's Cottage, or your Ursula's Cauldron, now you can always correctly guess with Bruno. And when you can always correctly guess with Bruno, this card's incredible. It's evasive, so they can't easily challenge it. No matter what the card is, item, character, doesn't matter. Not only do you get 3 lore from guessing correctly, it puts it into your hand. So you don't actually need as much card draw if you have Bruno out, because he just says, hey, draw a card, gain 3 lore. That's an incredible effect. And when you have these reliable methods of, once you have the Cauldron out or the Cottage, you will reliably be able to do it every turn, and especially if it's the Cauldron. Not everyone's running a bunch of item hate, so there's just very little way to interact with it. Bruno's been fantastic. If you wanted to fully go in on this theme, you could do like 4 Squirrel, 4 Bruno, 4 Cottage, 4 Cauldron. I think that's a little overkill. I did still want the deck to have some competitive angles to it, so that's why we're running some of these other cards. But this is the core concept of the deck. The looking into the future without actual visions of the future and guessing these cards and watching the value add up. So Merlin's Cottage in particular, because it doesn't gain lore, there's no point to having more than 1 out, whereas Ursula's Cauldron, you can actually still filter through your cards a little bit. So, but Bruno, man, this has been an absolute blast to play and way more fun than I originally thought. So that is the core concept of guessing the cards. What else do we have to make the deck work? Well, I'll tell you this too. Let's say you don't see any of these cards that let you guess. I would just always randomly guess the name Merlin, because that's all you have to do. You just have to name a card, and the majority of the cards in this deck are going to be Merlin. That's going to give you your highest odds of hitting. Not always, of course, but sometimes you'll get lucky, because this is Merlin, Crab is Merlin, Goat and Rabbit are both Merlin. We even have a bigger Merlin. This Merlin I've gone back and forth on. Originally I ran 2, but I just found him to be kind of clunky. Like, ideally, Assuming the smaller Merlin sticks around, you can shift in this bigger one on turn 5. Immediately go search out whatever cards you want from your deck. Sometimes I'll get the Bruno or I'll get the Cauldron if I'm missing the Scry pieces. Or maybe you need to let it go for removal, and then he can quest or sing it right away. He's fine. I really wish he just kind of had that effect on entry, and maybe they thought that would have been too strong, but having to shift is whatever. And the thing is, you don't really want to shift him on top of a goat or a rabbit, because then you lose their exit effects. So he's fine. He's a one of. Honestly, I think you could cut him. Let's take a look at some of the other fun pieces. Diablo, Chernabog, or just, basic 1-drops for card draw. Honeymaron's just a way to help us get that little extra lore. Snake and Fox, pretty much everyone knows. Same with Crab. Just ways to help you fight. This new Ana, I think, is just generically good. I really like this effect. So it's a 4-cost. It's quest for 2. It has support, which can come up and be useful, but it's Winter Ambush ability, where it's essentially just, in Final Fantasy, they'd call it a freeze, or in Magic the Gathering, they'd call it a stun. So you put it into play, and any character that's already exerted, it can't ready at the start of your turn. And that's so useful. It's the reason I really prefer this card over something like this Elsa. And I've tried a version of Blurple with both these cards in it, and when you have an Ana in play, the combination of the two is fantastic. So let's say the Elsa, she quests, you exert a character, you dull it, you freeze it, you exert it and you freeze it, if we're using FF terms, and the Ana can then freeze another thing. It's so good when they're in there together, but the problem is without the Ana, the Elsa does nothing. Well, technically she can exert when she quests, but I just didn't find that to be super useful. So while I really love this card, we're playing different versions of Elsa. We're playing the 5th Spirit as well as the big Spirits of Winter. I think these are just better and more consistent. This one just does a huge freeze on entry. So a fun card, but the Ana, again, it has the consistency. It comes down, it immediately freezes something or stuns something. And when they have something like a Sisu that can quest for 3 or a Maui Half Shark that you don't have to worry about it challenging you now because, hey, it's stuck there, it's frozen. So this card I've been a really big fan of. Going to mention the final Blurple card, which is Sven. I tried him a few times. He's just, I don't know, I just think he's a weaker version of Elsa overall. You'll have those few 1 in 20 match moments where you go, ah, man, Sven really did what I wanted him to do there, and it felt like I got away with something using him. But overall, I just think Elsa is way better. Big Elsa has always been a great top end for Blurple. It can shift onto this Elsa, which is fantastic. The turn after it comes down, the on-entry effect is, of course, great, and it quests for 3, so it's a big threat. Hades is just more spot removal for us, along with 4 copies of Let It Go, because sometimes you just have to get rid of cards. Friends on the other side, simple card draw. And Genie, of course, just more card draw, and it's evasive. Like, having a bunch of evasives on board is just difficult for your opponent to deal with. So the whole concept of the deck is around this Merlin and this prediction package, and I want to show you a few matches about how fun and potentially competitive this deck could be. Alright, since I do consider this deck mostly for fun, I will show you that I always hard mulligan for the Merlin, the 1-drop Merlin, and some way to scout what the next card is, whether that be Ursula's Cauldron, Squirrel, the Cottage, whatever. If you're playing more seriously, you should probably try to keep more serious versions of the card. Here, I just randomly guessed Merlin, of course it was wrong, but since it's just for fun, I always try to do that. Now, here's something that's interesting if you have 2 Merlins out. If you guess incorrectly, it leaves the card on top of the deck, as you'll see here. So I'll guess Merlin. So, okay, so I know Elsa's there. I can quest with the second Merlin. Now I know it's Elsa. Now it ramps forward. So there actually is a benefit to having both Merlins there. As you can see, I don't have a ton of card draw right now outside the Diablos. And I will say locations can be an issue, but we're going to quest, try and guess Merlin. Hey, look at that. I happen to hit Merlin. Guess Merlin again. Not right 2 times in a row. And we are going to get this Bruno out, though. And now, Bruno, even though we don't have one of the usual predictors, again, the Merlin shows us what the card is. So if we guess incorrectly, we get our 3rd big Elsa. Holy moly. We'll guess Merlin. Okay, so there's a Madam Mim Snake. So now I can guess with the Bruno. Well, it must be Madam Mim Snake. Get it into my hand, get 3 lore, quest again. We'll just always guess Merlin. Nope, it's another Bruno. Quest. We don't have a good way to deal with locations other than challenges with crabs and foxes and things of that nature. Sisu absolutely just blows us out here. So you could put things like Hideaway in if you're worried about locations, but here's the instance. I drop the Squirrel. I can check what the card is. I leave it on top. Is it Chernabog's Followers? Why, yes, it is. Now I get to drop the Goat. Boom, I'm on 19 lore. Do you have Pirate's Life? No, I don't think so. So that showed you, even without one of the predictors, using a double Merlin strat, we got there. So again, watch out for those manners, though, because as you can see, I just don't really have a great way to deal these cards. Obviously, I could just quest here, but I'm just going to do Merlin just for fun, just to predict with the Cauldron, so I can do one final prediction here with Bruno. Game 2, we have a Cauldron, but that's about it. So I'm going to ship away everything except the Cauldron and the Chernabog. We actually do get into the Merlin. Okay, so here is kind of one of the more traditional ways I can show you how the ramp works. Our opponent doesn't have a 1-drop, which is great for us. Otherwise, if they have a 1-drop, your Merlin's pretty much going to go bye-bye no matter what. Use the Cauldron, put the Ana on top, guess the Ana right into the Inkwell. We're ready for a Bruno next turn. And this is about to be turn 3, and we're going to have a Bruno set up. And there's not many decks that can deal with the Bruno that early. Probably, I'd imagine, keep the Cauldron, the Cottage on top. You don't really need the Cottage once you have the Cauldron. It's just a way to find consistency. We're going to get the Bruno. I'm more willing to give up a card like Chernabogs with a Bruno, because Bruno basically is card draw since he adds the card into your hand. We're going to put the Fox on top, and you just have, remember, you just have to say Madam Mim. You don't actually have to guess Fox or Crab or Snake or any of those. And we have Merlin give another guess anyway. Get the goat out there. Yeah, our opponent hasn't even put any threats to the board. So I actually think when I hinted at being competitive earlier, right, as we continue to just guess Elsa, very easy, all the way up to 10 lore. When I hinted at being competitive, I actually think this deck does very well against slower decks, against red-blue, and maybe some more control-heavy decks. It struggles with aggro. I will show you an aggro match earlier, but I had to face aggro several times. It is very, very difficult. So a lot better against control when that Merlin can stick around and potentially get you multiple ramps every turn. But I think it actually could be quite competitive against control. I'm all the way up to 17 lore. Drop the goat quest. Game's over already. Look how quick that was. And Jerry definitely inspired me watching him at locals because, again, he was playing against Justin. Justin running his classic red-blue. You know, no longer has Flaversham, of course. But still, it's a deck that takes time. So this 1-drop Merlin just sat around for a while. Now here we have the Cottage line. So we can do both the Cottage and Diablo or Chernabogs. Our opponent sees their ramp. They still don't have a character out there. And most people aren't playing a rush character on 4. There is a super goof. But as you can see, the Cottage, we know what's coming. Oh, okay, they're going to get a Tala. I've got a Merlin on top. They put out their Tala. It can challenge me the following turn, but that's not going to be in time. So I do want that Let It Go into my hand, which is why I quest first to get the Chernabogs. Guess Diablo right into the Inkwell. We're set up for the Bruno play. And I have a Cottage out, which means Bruno will always know what the top card is, which means he can't fail. This card is actually, I think, kind of busted when you can always guess correctly. He's a little slow, and again, more super competitive decks. Granted, this is the DKP Shark version of this list. Oh, and of course, I forgot my usual. This is against the AI on Ink table, so do take these with a grain of salt. They don't always make the best decisions and best choices. A real player will, of course, give you much more of a struggle. But I did also see it do very well against a real player. And there's that awesome McDuck's Manor. We add the crab into our hand. Look how big our hand is getting. I can put things like goat out. Goat with the crab can potentially threaten the manor, which is nice. There's no benefit to moving them into Cottage. I always just like to use my Spear Ink. Now, they've got a McManor on board. They've got a Sisu. However, I can pretty much just try to race here with the goat. With the Merlin, we drop the Elsa. The Elsa alone is such a big threat because they have to get rid of this card since it quests for 3, and there's just not much going to be. Even a super goof, yeah. They could have B-prepped the board is probably their best bet there, but they just didn't have it. So we'll let Bruno get one more guess for the win. Now that was against some red-blue. I think this time we might be switching to aggro. Potentially not. Oh, I do have my Cottage and my Merlin. Okay, like I said, I'm always looking for that. I do ink the Cottage though because I have the Cauldron. And don't need it. So here, this is against aggro. And this is, you pretty much have to go first to have a chance against this deck. I will say, you, for the most part, can't play the guess plan. Here, it works out a little bit because I'm going first and because I see the line. Computer even says, nah, I'm not going to let you do that. I'm just going to take you out with a Daisy. So you better be prepared to be controlling. However, Cauldron is still nice. Once it's on the field, you just get to, for free, guess at things and pull cards in your hand. That's why I established the Bruno. I'm kind of in a weird spot where, God, I have all 3 Elsa. How do I continually get all 3 Elsas into my hand? Oh, my goodness. So we're definitely going to want Fox. I have Bruno. Guess what that is. Fox can bounce the Bruno. I have to take one of these daisies out. The mine is a pain to deal with, too, but we can potentially set the crab up next turn as well. And you have to, as you can see, I have to switch. I don't have the time to sit there and like, I'm going to play guessing future games, but your opponent is just going to beat you down with lore. So be ready to switch with Fox and Crab and things of that nature. Send the Chernabog in. I'm probably going to send Elsa in, I imagine. Yep. Elsa's going to knock down one of the docks, but then I take out the Cinderella. I could have sent the Fox into Daisy. I just really wanted to get rid of that Dwarven Mine. If they can start picking apart your own board, That's a big pain. So I have the big Elsas I could shift onto here. Now that I draw the Hades, I could also just use Hades. He hits for 3. He's actually a decent beater. And I could get something like the Smee just right off the board, take 2 lore off of it. I opt to do that. Take out the Daisy. Elsa, keep pumping on the dock. Oh boy, there's Piglet. But we have big Elsa now. And they have nothing in hand. And they opt to take out the Fox, but it's not going to matter. See, and this is the nice thing about the Cauldron. Even though I had all Uninkables, I used the Cauldron to make sure I would draw into an Inkable card so I could play this big Elsa. So now Elsa freezes down their board, and I can just start questing in their face. Piglet's not much if he can't turn sideways. So I happily trade there. I stack more Inkables on top, get the goat, and now I just quest in their face, and I just keep dropping Elsa after Elsa and say, yep, freeze, 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 freeze. I do love this big Elsa card, man. This has always been one of my favorite purple legendaries. And now it's just like, oh, now you'll actually be chasing me, sir, and we just drop the goat for the win. So, possible, but you just have to be able to adapt to it. I keep the Merlin. Ooh, we get both a Cottage and a double Merlin. Oh, man, are you going to enjoy this match? So, I am going to absolutely go off. Opponent puts down opposing Diablo, which has no attack power, which means we're pretty darn safe. I use the Cottage. I can see what's coming on both of our mats. And I actually put down a second Merlin, knowing I'm not being threatened by this Diablo. I'm certainly not being threatened by a second one. Watch how much I'm going to ramp here. Well, what could it be? It certainly looks like Honeymarin. Well, what could that be? It certainly looks like Madam Mim. Hey, look at that. And I'll just do friends to get a little more. I'll ink the Honeymarin. Move him to the Cottage. I'm already on 6 ink. My opponent is just going to 3 ink, and I have 6. I have double their ink on turn 3. Holy moly, what are we doing? And they just have the Diablos out. So I just get to keep going. Okay, well, we'll guess that. Now we'll guess friends. Yeah, a little more. I'm ready. I can stun one of them with the Ana. Ink the Crab. Play the Fox. I actually bounce back one of the Merlins just to control the other Diablo. I didn't really even need to do that, but I'm at 9 ink on turn, 4? I think that's pretty good. I think we got some good ramp value out of that. And we've got the Cottage, so we'll just keep guessing. I think I just keep putting rabbits into my Inkwell here. Who needs rabbits? On a quest gives support. Not that the Fox needs support. And we're already ready to we're putting down a big Elsa, and they have 4 ink on the board. How do you deal with a 4/6 that freezes 2 of your characters on turn 4? Spoiler alert, you don't. They're nowhere close to be prepared. Nowhere close. And I'm just deciding, what do I want to do? Elsa, lock some more down, which we absolutely can do. I'm trying to think how I best want to deal with these queens. Not that I even have to deal with them. I could just quest in their face. Ana is going to give support to the Merlin. Not that I plan on having him attack. And he's just going to keep ramping. We're all the way up to 12 ink while our opponent has 5. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I mean, again, what can you do? You can't even get to be prepared in this time. Like, we just absolutely, positively went off this game. And I just inked more just to show off. 14 ink before our opponent has 6. Oh, if only they all played out this way. And that's we'll even give support to Diablo to have him do a little bird on bird action. We'll even have I'm just challenging just because I know I can, and Elsa will quest for victory. And that's the deck. It's some of the most fun I've had in Disney Lorcana recently. I absolutely just love the Merlin guessing game. I don't know, maybe it's my style, but it's just really fun. And as you can see, I don't think this is going to be quite as good as the more traditional builds of Blurple, but man, if you can get that early Merlin, the ramping power is quite incredible. So maybe there is some competitive, super competitive build of this where you can still play the Merlin. Maybe you cut out on some of the other cards. I don't know, like you probably cut this Merlin. I think he's a little too unreliable. Maybe you just run the Cauldron. You get rid of like the Cottage and the Squirrel, and you don't go so all in on that. But when it works, I absolutely enjoy it. If you have any other suggestions, cards you can think of like, oh, this really works well too with like the whole prediction factor. I know there's like the Sorcerer's Hat, but the Cauldron just seemed a little more streamlined to me. So if you've got ideas, I'd absolutely love to hear them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give a like and subscribe to the channel. We're closing in on 2,000 subs, and your help can get us there. Check out the description of the video for links to our Metafy page where we offer private coaching, and consider becoming a patron or YouTube member for exclusive bonuses. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, take care.